Hello, my name is Dr. Donna Robinson, Senior Manager for Programs and Operations for CASA Dc. And I would like to welcome you today to our grand open house. Today you will learn about all of the varied programs we have here at CASA Dc, as well as how to refer our most needed youth to receive a CASA volunteer. So without any further ado, I am going to pass the mic over to Allison Kahn, our Chief Operations Officer. Allison?
Brief introduction as to who we are as CASA for Children of DC, what our model looks like, why we do what we do, and who our different programs are. So we are going to start with a better understanding of who CASA for Children of DC is and where we fit into the wider CASA community and DC. CASA for Children of DC's mission is to connect every court-involved youth in DC with the one-on-one support of a consistent adult figure who can advocate for their best interests and promote positive outcomes. Our ultimate vision is that every trauma-impacted youth in DC receives excellent advocacy and support to unleash their full potential to thrive. CASA for Children of DC was formed almost 20 years ago in 2002. Since that time, we have trained over 2,000 advocates and served over 1,900 youth. We are a DC chapter of the National CASA and JAL program. Though we are based off of the National CASA and JAL model, which provides one-on-one court-appointed special advocates to foster youth, we provide unique programming such as serving juvenile justice-involved youth and really ensure that our work promotes the specific needs of DC's youth. We work with a particular model that takes the CASA model of one-on-one volunteer mentorship and best interest advocacy, but we also incorporate that with 4 domains that we've specifically identified at CASA for Children of DC to best serve the youth of DC and to also ensure that we are addressing the areas of a youth's life most impacted by childhood trauma. A little bit more about what that mentoring and one-on-one support looks like. CASA volunteers form a one-on-one mentor relationship with a youth or a sibling group. CASA volunteers engage youth in positive activities and work with youth towards goal attainment. Youth are supported across 4 key domains: permanency, education, well-being, and life skills. So what do those look like? These are our core mentoring activities across our 4 domains. First and foremost, our volunteers visit with youth 2 times per month. That consistent engagement, that relationship building is absolutely vital. And next we have engagement and support across our 4 domains. The first is permanency, working towards successful case closure, reunification, guardianship, adoption, or ensuring if youth is going to age out, that they're able to do so in a way that they have independent life skills and have transitioned towards adulthood successfully. Our CASAs also really work to ensure that our youth are in a stable and safe placement. Next, we have education. This includes really helping our youth with academic achievement, but also incorporating learning in their life. Our CASAs help support youth in learning activities, promote attendance and academic success. Our CASAs have the opportunity to visit youth at school, to engage with academic providers, and also do some core work with older youth around attainment of graduation and working towards higher education or skills training. Next, we have well-being, addressing our youth's behavioral, emotional, and physical well-being. And our CASAs provide key support here, educating and helping youth practice coping strategies, engaging youth in recreation, really being that positive support and engaging in positive relationships with the youth, but also really working collaboratively with the youth's team, which we'll talk more about. We don't set those appointments for physical needs for our youth, medical needs for our youth, but we do really work with the team to ensure that those needs are happening and being addressed. And next we have life skills. Life skills is really working from our youngest youth to our older youth on some of those key experiences of exposure to new experiences, character building, working towards goals, exploring career interests, and then really strategic work with our older youth such as engaging in budgeting and working with youth for preparation for the workforce. And that is our mentoring side of our core model. Next, we have our advocacy side. CASA volunteers advocate for their youth's best interests in court and the youth's interdisciplinary team, such as their social worker, their JL, their probation worker, based on the personal relationship that they form with the youth through that mentoring side and an assessment of the youth's needs and supports. CASA volunteers are appointed by the court and have the authority to participate in court hearings, team meetings, to address records, and to engage with important individuals in the youth's life, such as academic providers, which we discussed, placement providers, and other individuals. We have several core advocacy activities to support the mentoring side and to ensure we're able to communicate recommendations and supports needed to address the youth's needs. Our CASA volunteers assess our youth. That includes observation, visiting, reviewing records. They communicate. That is, as we've talked about, communicating with important individuals in the youth's life, the teachers, the placement providers, but it also means regular collaboration with that interdisciplinary team, the social worker, GIL, probation officers. And that all leads to that core advocacy. Our CASAs have the opportunity to write court reports. They are court-appointed special advocates. They have the opportunity to appear in court and provide recommendations in court. Our CASAs recommend permanency goals alongside the team, but they also provide advocacy to that interdisciplinary team for needed supports and services that may arise in between court hearings. And something important to note about the advocacy side is even if a youth is not well engaged in those in-person mentoring supports, the assessment and communication and collaboration can allow the CASA volunteer to still provide robust best interest advocacy, even if that is coming from these assessments and communications, and they do not have as regular engagement with the youth. What makes Casa DC unique? Casa DC is the only organization in DC that unites mentoring and court-appointed advocacy. CASA volunteers work with court-involved youth in the child welfare system, juvenile justice system, or those who are duly involved in both. And that is unique to CASA DC versus other CASA chapters throughout the country. And our 4 domains and special programs are also unique to CASA DC. Those have been developed based on the needs of DC youth, the trauma impact that we've observed, and are unique to CASA DC versus national CASAs and CASA chapters that you would see throughout the country. So why do we do this work? What makes this work important? We know, based on rigorous research and data, that you can observe that foster youth face lower academic achievement than their peers. And this is true in DC and throughout the nation. Foster youth have increased risk of future unemployment, poverty, homelessness, and justice involvement. Abuse and neglect and removal from home are adverse childhood experiences that contribute to childhood trauma. And adverse childhood experiences have been linked to risky behaviors, lessened school performance, relationship difficulties, and chronic health conditions through adulthood. But at the same time, we also know that a consistent positive adult figure can serve as a protective factor against adverse childhood experiences. And if you're interested in learning more about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, the CDC has done some rigorous review of adverse childhood experiences and their protective factors. You can go to cdc.gov and read a lot more about that and what some of those protective factors, including that consistent adult figure, can look like. Studies also show that youth with mentors are more likely to have improved academic outcomes. Mentor-mentee relationships can promote positive skill development, healthy coping mechanisms, and career readiness. And youth with CASA volunteers have reduced number of placements and increased services based on studies that have been done by National CASA. So these are some of the core reasons why we have our CASA Core model and why we do the work that we do. So we're going to look at very briefly CASA DC's programs. And this is the core of our open house. After we move on from our introduction, you'll have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms and learn more about the individual programs of your choice. So everything we've talked about today is a part of CASA Core. CASA DC seeks to provide consistent support through mentorship and advocacy to youth, which recognizes the impact of trauma experienced by court-involved youth and evidence-based practices to help youth thrive. This is the CASA Core. This is the foundation of our work across programs, and every one of our special programs uses this model as a foundation. Our special programs include Bridges, which serves youth involved in the juvenile justice system, Empower, supporting youth survivors of trafficking and sexual violence, the Family Treatment Court or Thrive program, supporting substance-impacted youth and families, MAP, the Multicultural Advocacy program, serving immigrant and first-generation youth, and Preparing Youth for Adulthood, empowering transitioning youth towards a successful adulthood.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the CASA DC Open House, and specifically the Empower program, serving youth who have been victims of sexual violence and sex trafficking. My name is Alexandra Fields, and I am a senior manager here at CASA DC. All right, before we get started, can I have your name and where you're from? And have you ever referred a youth to CASA? And then if you could just put in the chat and rate your knowledge on the CASA Empower program. Have you heard of it? Heard somebody else talk of it, or you don't know about it at all? If we could just do a quick poll, and I'll give you about 30 seconds. Okay, thank you. So what will be covered in this presentation is a history of the program and why we exist, what we offer to our youth, how Empower is making a difference, what populations we serve, and how our CASAs are trained. So let's look at the program history. Empower program serves, as I mentioned, provides volunteers to the court-involved youth in DC who are suspected or confirmed survivors of human trafficking, sexual abuse, and other forms of sexual violence. Empower's CASA volunteers receive extensive and specialized training in human trafficking and sex crimes to prepare them in providing high-quality advocacy to these cases. So a youth does not have to be a victim. The team could suspect that they are a victim and they would still be appropriate for Empower. And Empower, the mission is and aim is to create a strong alliance across all agencies that serves, protects, and seeks to understand and provide youth with specialized advocacy and empowerment. Empower's CASA volunteers and staff also aim to empower the entire team so that the momentum in seeking justice is not compromised. And as far as the population we serve, Empower CASA serves youth in foster care who are affected by sexual violence, sexual abuse, human trafficking, and sexual exploitation. We serve youth of all ages. And we specialize and work with LGBT plus youth. Empower CASA specialize in working with youth with complex trauma. And I do want to add here, yes, we do serve youth who are in foster care, but the youth can be dual jacketed as well. If the social worker feels that, or the probation officer feels that that youth has a propensity and is a victim towards sexual violence and sexual abuse, they would be appropriate for Empower. Okay, who are our volunteers and how are they trained? Our volunteers represent various backgrounds. Outside of the 30 hours training specific to CASA DC, Empower CASAs receive a robust and extensive training in human trafficking and sex crimes. So that includes the mandatory sex trafficking, sexual abuse, and sexual violence training, mandatory trauma-informed care, and double victimization training, all of which they will get when they get an Empower case so that they can be able and know the nuances of the youth who are dealing with that complex trauma. And of course, the CASAs who will be trained will have exclusively empower cases for following their training. And of course, they will fulfill quarterly training requirements to enhance their advocacy and further equip to them to enable youth to overcome trauma. And so if you see here in the right hand at the bottom, we have an actual CASA volunteer, and she speaks a little bit about, why she was brought to CASA and how she's contributed to those cases. And what we offer to our youth, who is our most important person, is that we meet and engage with the youth twice a month in order to provide consistency and stability. Currently, even though we are dealing with COVID-19 still, we have policies and procedures around safe visitation with the youth. So we are back to visiting our youth in person. CASAs are in a position to provide a unique and individualized advocacy with their specialized training, empower staff, and CASAs work to provide structural empowerment by promoting strong collaborative relationships with all agencies. And lastly, empower staff facilitate self-care sessions where CASAs can process and decompress. This is intended to reduce burnout and maintain high quality advocacy. So we make sure that we take care of our volunteers and process and provide them that support, which is vital in these cases that can have vicarious trauma. How Empower is making a difference. We're making a difference because we've had great success with being first responders to crisis. Oftentimes, the CASA volunteer is the first one the youth calls or reach out to in crisis, and we're able to connect the team and kind of support them through that. We have been most likely to be contacted with youth and abscondence, which is an issue in every area of the foster care system. And it provides a level of support and reassurance to the youth's family and team that at least they're reaching out to someone, as well as the court. And lastly, Empower CASAs attend hearings and staffings, and to include Hope Court. So lastly, this is my contact and email information if you have any questions or if you have any youth that want to be referred or will be appropriate to the Empower program. And at this time, I would like to take any questions. Thank you so much for attending the presentation. As always, please reach out if you have any questions.
At this time, we would like to discuss how to refer youth to Casa Dc. All Casa Dc referrals must be authorized by the court. However, when a partner identifies a youth for Casa services, we can facilitate this referral through coordination with the court. There are 4 ways that you can make a CASA referral through 2 separate avenues. The first avenue is directly through the court. This can be done at a court hearing where CASA services are requested. The second is through an attorney working on the case. The attorney can file a motion requesting a CASA for the youth in care. The second method is through Casa Dc. Here you can either email a request for a CASA volunteer through referrals@casadc.org, or you can complete the Get Feedback referral survey using the link below and make a CASA referral or request at that point. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact the program manager for either of the programs that you're interested in, or you can send your questions to referrals@casadc.org. Thank you for attending our session today.